Hey, church, I just wanted to share a bit of encouragement with you as I'm reading a little devotion in 1 Thessalonians uh, chapter 4, verse 11 to 12. And Paul says this. He's writing to the church in Thessalonica, and they're dealing with a little bit of laziness. Basically, what's happening is Paul writes this letter to the Thessalonians because clearing up some understanding of what the return of Christ is. But these people were so focused on the return of Christ that a lot of them quit their jobs. They became really lazy, and they started just basically turning to the streets and preaching apocalyptic, messages all the time, and really, frankly, just became annoying to other people around, and they tarnished their witness. And so Paul is writing to them, and he says this right here in 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 11. Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders and so that you will not be dependent on anybody. And it's interesting because there's really 4 points that Paul writes in this, just these four, just in this verse, couple verses right here. And the first is that you should make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. And Paul's not saying to just, be quiet and say nothing to people, but because they were, preaching these messages of end times, and that's all they were focusing on, they became quite annoying. And, just look around us. It doesn't take a second to figure that some people think that the world's going to end tomorrow. And we really don't know when Jesus is coming back, so we should be ready at any moment. But we're also called to, we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. And we're also to be the light and the salt around us to the people, to share the gospel message of Jesus Christ. And how can we do that if we just neglect that call by basically being lazy and loud? And so Paul's saying, lead a quiet life to the people around you. Support your families, be good neighbors, help your community. Stay level-headed and really just don't be weird. That's basically what Paul is saying. You tarnish your witness when you're being weird. The second one is that he's saying just mind your own business in verse 11. And what does that mean? Well, if you look around us even today, peering over a fence or in social media and always checking in on people and commenting on everything and stalking people, some of us have a lot more time than others. And we need to mind our own business a lot of times. And so basically, when we're living 24/7 devotion to Christ, as the Thessalonians did, we can easily neglect the call that God has put on our lives to live in this earth and be the witness of Christ. And so the Thessalonians were basically neglecting and quitting their 9-to-5 jobs, so to speak, and they were just kind of doing their own thing. And so, right now it's easy. A lot of us aren't working, but many of us still are. And we could easily become lazy. And so Paul's encouragement really could be to us too. If you're able to work, give it your all. We don't just look around us saying, hey, that person's, putting in just a little bit of time there, or they're staying home because they have a cough or whatever. We're really not supposed to be worried about the next person beside us. All we're accountable and responsible to is God. And so we put 110% in because we're working for the glory of God. And we're working to win the favor of our employers and our coworkers, so that one day we have a conversation with them, that we can open the doors to sharing the message and the hope of Christ. The third thing is that Paul says to work with your hands. Many of them became lazy in these churches in Thessalonica. And so they became so lazy that they just did nothing. And it kind of ties into the fourth one. They basically became mooches. It says so that you don't have to be dependent on other people. Mind your own business and work with your hands just as you're told to, so that your daily life may win the respect of others, so that you will not be dependent on anybody. And it's not saying that at times we need help, because as the church, as Christians, if we're mooching off of other people all the time, what kind of witness does that send to other people? As the church, we're supposed to be able to use our resources and our time and our finances and be able to give and support others around us for the sole purpose of winning them to Christ. And so if we're mooching off other people all the time, how are we supposed to do that? But there is a reality that at times we need help as the church, and so the church should help other people around them, especially other believers around them, And so we're supposed to give a hand out, to people, to a hand up, so to speak, not just enabling people, but to help them get back on their feet so that they can do it for other people. And so Paul's really writing this encouragement to this church back then, but it can be encouragement to us today. And so I just encourage you, as we look at this text, to lead a quiet life, which means to win the respect of others, to do your job to the glory of God, to live your life and help your community, to stay level-headed and don't be weird. Think about what we say and what we do before we post it. Think about what we say and do before we speak to our neighbors or those around us. People are hurting. People need hope. They need the hope of Christ right now. If you're working, work as hard as you can, no matter if the coronavirus is around or not. We're working for God. We're working to the glory of God. And so don't give up. Be encouraged and stay strong, stand in the Lord, and be a witness to Him. Be the church.